mentally steel yourself, write the review, then go to hiding and hopefully don't open Twitter for 2 days is what. I've gotten trolled a lot. I've gotten phone calls from people. So if somebody says tomorrow, if you think acting is so easy, why don't you act? I'll say, there, I've acted. I've memorized 3 pages of dialogue and I've delivered it. Now come back to me and say. So funny because now of late I've discovered there's a secret cartoon cult. They don't know. All they know is the face on the poster. If the hero's there, they'll go. If the hero's not there, they won't go. Mishkin is such an odd kind of person that you don't know what he's going to do next. With Vetri, I'm always assured of a certain, thing. But with Mishkin, you never know what direction. Like a blind man driving a car. Where would I get that except in a Mishkin movie?
For you, this is the second edition of our conversation with Mr. Baradwaj Rangan, National Award winning critic, a man who really needs no further introduction. Without much delay, let's get back to the conversation where we have BR, as always in fine form, explaining the process behind all the wonderful work that he enthralls us with. Thank you. Any industry, a person, especially an influential person, when they pass a comment or an opinion about someone else's work, if they haven't done it themselves, the immediate response would be, "Why don't you show us, how it's done?" It's common in football because a failed football player becoming a great football manager is difficult. And you can take the example of Harsha Bogle, who hasn't played cricket, but he's still very good at doing his job. But you have dabbled at the process of creating movies as well. I recollect that you wrote for Kalki as well as dialogue writer for Kadal to Kalyanam and so on. So where is that journey of yours, and what do you think about when you switch the sides? When you go behind to create this, how is it?
When Milind, who directed Abal later, when Milind Rao offered me Kadal to Kalyanam, we worked on the screenplay and dialogues together. It was just, why not? It was just that, right? So personally, I was interested in knowing whether I could do it or not. And we finally did it. The film didn't come out because of various reasons. Because Mirchi movies that produced it, they closed shop and went away. So the film is kind of, I think it's still there, but I don't know who has the rights or whatever it is. So it's still there. So that interested me, and with Kalki, it was an idea that Dilip had, and he came to me, and I wrote the thing. I love that process. It's just that it's a very exhausting process, and it's very intensive. So trying to do that with the digital job is really out of the question. You really cannot do both. But I really like that, and because it showed me how various aspects of a film come together. Because you can read all you want, but unless you see it practically, you know what's happening, right? You kind of see it happening. But that said, I don't think it's necessary for anybody to, because I know film directors who can't review movies for shit. When I say review movies, they cannot analyze or something like that. They cannot do that. I know people like that. I know people who can talk very well about movies, but they can't write about them, because talking about film is a different skill set than writing, putting those thoughts inside your head into writing. I know people who can write well about movies, but can't necessarily talk about them. So these are all, movies is an umbrella. Under these, different people do different things. And I would just say that's a thing. So I've even acted in a cameo appearance in Sita Kari, the Vijay Sethupathi movie. So if somebody says tomorrow, if you think acting is so easy, why don't you act? I'll say, there, I've acted. I've memorized 3 pages of dialogue and I've delivered it. Now come back to me and say. So I think it's just, it's. I don't think I agree with your Harsha Bogle example. I think he's a brilliant commentator, and I think it doesn't mean it needs. It just, you need to know the game. You need to. I think above everything else, I know it's a very often used word, but you have to be passionate. Because if you're not passionate, it'll show. If you're just coasting through it, it'll show. That's when people get annoyed. If you're super passionate about what you're doing, people catch on. That passion becomes addictive to people. It's almost like you're sending out an invisible airwave from your review or from your writing or whatever it is, and people are able to catch on to it because that's infectious and they feel the passion as well. I think that's really what's the most important thing, more than being able to write or cinematograph or do whatever, it's about feeling that passion for the medium and being able to convey that passion. I think that's what's most important.
Okay. Since Kadal to Kalyanam was mentioned, I have sort of a sensitive, I don't know, topic or a question to broach. I remember you writing somewhere, not exactly where, that when you wrote the screenplay for Kadal to Kalyanam and you had given it to somebody for feedback, the feedback that you got was the names are too like very Brahmin-like, and the setting,
Yeah,
I think, I don't remember exactly.
we'd call the hero Rahul. And
Yes,
somebody
yes,
said
yes.
Rahul sounds very upper class and very like Tamram like. I was like, really? Rahul sounds Tamram like? I don't know. Like there are no other Rahuls. Okay, so
Yeah.
we stick
So,
to Arnold.
so this sort of leading on from that, also referring to one of your recent interviews with director Ram. What do you think is the role of caste in maybe South Indian or Tamil cinema or in Indian cinema? So I think Ram mentioned in that interview
Role
with
of
you that,
caste as in? Okay, so yeah, please.
or how is caste? Let me just complete that. So Ram mentioned in that interview with you that after Ranjit, caste had come out in the open in Tamil cinema. So it was like almost a before and after Ranjit phase. And now people were compelled to talk about caste and they couldn't just sort of hide or put it away under some markers. So what is your opinion on how caste is sort of represented in cinema, Indian cinema in general? I think you quoted this in you wrote this in an article. I think when Sairat went to Hindi as a mainstream Bollywood cinema, caste became class. And you had also mentioned that in Bollywood, it's more of a class that is spoken about and caste not so much, except for certain movies. Just want to
Yeah.
know your views on that in general.
See, one thing about things like, see, most people go to films for entertainment. Okay, uh, and it's not just in India; it's anywhere in the world. So when you make a movie like Fandry, which is Nagaraj Manjure's first film, or it kind of, it doesn't find much of an audience. It finds a cinephilic audience, but not really much of a mass audience. But when you make the same thing into a Sairat, then the film begins to work at two levels. The film works at, for the person who's looking at it in a one particular way, it's a very strong comment on caste and all that. For the person who's generally relaxing and watching, it's still a very moving story about a boy and a girl. So I think that's the only way you can make mainstream movies about any topic. It could be a kind of genocide. It could be about a kind of what I mean is that even if people don't understand that or want to engage with that caste, because caste is a very disturbing thing, they can kind of engage with the story as the story moves forward, right? I think that's how most of mainstream cinema works. Now, in Bollywood, what happens is, again, you're talking about how expensive a film is. You cannot expect certain films to tackle on see, first of all, it's a person's prerogative force them to adhere to my agenda. I have to respect what you want to do with your film. If you don't want to make a caste movie, I can't force you to make a caste movie, right? So if you say based on Saira, that really means it's based on it. It's not necessarily that it's in exact, you're saying that or whatever. If you want to glamorize it, that's your prerogative. If you want to use prettier stars, that's your prerogative. But within that universe that you're building, that new universe, the movie should make sense and should be convincing for me. That's all that I care about. So I would say that it's been very, it's a long due thing that caste based movies are coming about. But where I would uh, uh, you know want to know, what I would want to know is, are the people talking about these movies still only people like us? The people that read English language newspapers and very small, they read their op-ed pieces in papers and all that. At the grassroots level, at village levels where there's really oppression happening, are those guys talking about these films? Are those guys, watching these films? Because it's to be very fair, I can watch like a Pariyar Perumal and rave about it or whatever it is. But all my friends, I don't have a single friend who will not agree with that movie or say that that movie is saying something wrong. So within this echo chamber, we all know that caste is bad, caste is oppression and all that. The movie is working, but out of that echo chamber, what's happening? What is happening to that movie when it reaches the heartlands of Tamil Nadu where this movie is set? So that I don't know if it's happening or not, which is why I think Pariyar and Perumal is a very interesting movie because it explicitly, brought out the Dalitness in the character, right? Whereas some other films were kind of referencing them through, Sairat is also a fairly explicitly a Dalit kind of movie. So I think
Madras, for example.
Madras is again a reference kind of a thing. It's not. It's yeah, like you have to kind of know these symbols and kind of a thing, because I've always wondered about this. Even Kabali is showing Rajnikant read a book. Again, in Madras you're showing Karthi read a book. Now, a lot of people said, isn't it obvious that he's Dalit is reading that book? It's like, so if I'm reading Das Kapital out of pure interest, does that make me like a communist? If I'm reading the Bible, am I Christian? I mean, I can read any book because I'm interested in a subject. A book does not necessarily mean I could read Ananda Vigadan, I could read, India Today, I could read anything. Reading a book is basically mean that person is reading a book. That's all. It's like it doesn't mean that that person is belongs to that community about which the book is being written or whatever it is. So again, it depends on how you want to take it. And I love it that Ranjit is trying to do these things and he's trying to spread awareness in these ways. And he told me in that interview of his that there are certain things that he still cannot do because he wants his movies to have a wide appeal. And because Pariyar and Perumal, even though it's considered a success, it's a success in relation to its budget. It's not really a blockbuster of that kind, It's a very small budget movie. It's a hit. It's a solid hit, but in relation to its budget. It's not like one of those, I wouldn't be surprised if there are many people in Tamil Nadu outside of the educated circles who've not really seen or heard of this movie. So I would say that it's very important to keep making movies that you want to make. It is very important to address it, but I think true change through movies, I don't think it's possible. I really don't subscribe to that. I know I'm saying something that could be misinterpreted because we live in a state, at least I live in a state where movies were a prime medium of propaganda for the formation of a rationalist party. But I also think that those were very different times. The film medium was still new. People were still blown away by what they were susceptible enough, and there was no other media around as powerful as going to a film, watching the big screen and watching Shivaji in that courtroom scene in Parasakti saying that and kind of speaking for society. I think that power film has lost. I don't think cinema has that kind of power anymore because we have been exposed to too many interviews, too many making of videos, too many the process of that invisibility, that cinema, that naivety. When you approach something with naivety, you think it's really happening. Once you know that there is a wall between that, today people troll stars. They make memes out of things. So that cinema is no longer, it's not there, it's come down to our levels that we can stamp on a movie if we want to, it's become that. So I really think films have lost that luster, the sheen that they had where they could go and change somebody's way of life, perspective of looking. I think what happens is, and I'm only speaking for myself, I'm not generalizing this. I think what happens is people feel something while they're watching the movie. Maybe they think about it a little after because while the thing is it, but then life sweeps you along and you get caught on the next wave of whatever you're doing. And that's it. You remember like you like this movie, and I think that's basically it.
Maybe just a small question before I think Pallavi is asking. But what would you comment about a movie like, let's say, Asuran, which had a bigger star, and which sort of approached the issue of caste a little more directly, even though the reference was not directly there, but it was there using markers like Panchami lands and the British time era, etc., etc.
And also,
Is that the sign of
the
a
fact
mature
that
audience?
they were not wearing allowed to wear chappals and things like that. So I think
Yes.
the thing was fairly, just you could, but I think that really worked because of the powerful storytelling. Because the that Barsha kind of format,
Flashback.
people love that. That's like when at interval time, Dhanush is kind of doing that, uh, like and his son is watching like, oh my God, is that my dad? That's the audience, because it's like, wow, they were waiting for this moment, and they were like, oh God, this guy's such a loser, this guy's such a loser, this guy's such a loser. Bam, interval moment happens, this guy rises, then the movie's never going to be the same again. So that format is a very powerful format. So I think that Vetrimaran and Dhanush did that format very well, even though I'm not like a huge fan of that film, but it's a very well made movie, and it's a very powerful mainstream film. I think I don't think it's any. I would rather watch a Vada Chennai, over that, because I think that's a brilliant bit of storytelling. It's so, I mean, the way it builds to its climax is so brilliant. But this is, see, at the end of the day, you have to understand that the audience likes familiar stuff, but told in a slightly different manner. They are not there for wildly innovative stuff. That will never happen in a mainstream film. Wildly innovative stuff will never work. That will work for a very small kind of audience. Like you do Super Deluxe, it's not going to work for a large audience. It's going to work for a cinephilic kind of audience, but it will never work for a large audience.
Correct.
So, BR, have you faced any pressure while reviewing big budget movies or movies with big stars? Has somebody told you to review it in a certain way? Have you ever experienced that?
You mean, has anybody showed up outside my door and said
Something like that?
Do a good review, or else kidnap your family and then kind of hold them hostage till the review is published? No, that's not happened. I've gotten trolled a lot. I've gotten phone calls from people. I have friends. It's inevitable that after working in this field for as long as I have, which is around 17, 18 years, I won't call them friends, but you do develop basic professional relationships with film people, because you keep running into them at various events or whatever it is. So you can't, that kind of thing. So suddenly they'll start talking to you, or they'll take it personally, but at the end of the day, you just have to go ahead and do what you have to do. It's it's like I know that, like, you have to be very careful about, because my philosophy from the beginning has been to give you an experience of my thought process. I should not let anybody else into that thought process. Because if I let people in, and if I start thinking, oh my God, I like this Mani Ratnam movie, but then if I write another positive review for a Mani Ratnam movie, they're really going to say, oh my God, it's done it again, whatever. Then I'll be paralyzed. I can't do it, because I owe it to Mani Ratnam to give a positive review for a movie that I like, just as I didn't like Chekachevandavanam and I didn't give it a good review. So that's, you owe it to your, like, that is something that you have to hold on to. That you cannot be bullied into giving a review that people expect of you. So when I came out of Bigil, I found that, strangely, of all the films that Atlee and Vijay had done together, this is the one that held together the most. I knew that I would get trolled if I said nice things about the film. I'm not saying it's a great film or anything like that, but basically I'm saying, even if I say it's an okayish, nice-ish kind of written film, I'd still get trolled because all people want to say is, at least sucks. This movie sucks. That's what they want to hear, right? So I knew but I can't let that thought make me give a different kind of review. So you mentally steel yourself, write the review, then go to hiding, and hopefully don't open Twitter for 2 days. Is what my thing is. I knew that when I liked Vishwasam, I knew, oh my God, shit, I like this. I'm going to come out. I'm going to like be effing trolled because people are going to say, what, we are liking Ajit movie, what has happened? He's gone digital and he's changed, he's sold out of some shit. But you just have to do what you have to do, man. It's like
I remember so when you wrote about Carter Velide and you liked certain aspects, and
I really like that movie.
How, yeah, so
actually,
people
if I wrote it today, if I wrote the review today, I'd write a much more positive review because that film has really grown on me.
So at that time
people hate. It's like, wow, it's not even like a regular kind of hate. It's like a, like you say ka, and that's it. The blood begins to boil right there. You don't even have to say tr. It's like
there was so much indignation in the comment section.
Yeah,
and then Chekkachivandravanam releases. Yeah, and then you didn't like it, and people were like again upset. They were like, "How could you not like Chekkachivandravanam?" So that
what
was very funny. So
yeah, so it's like it just happens. It's so funny because now of late I've discovered that there's a secret Carter Velide cult. Every time I say something about the movie, somebody will come and say, "Yeah, I do like that movie. I don't know why nobody else." I'm like, "Yo, you could have said this before. No, why you like when I was being bashed up for that review?"
Yeah.
So no, but I think that pressure to I don't blame some reviewers because when you're still I've come to Carter Velide after establishing myself as a reviewer for a long time, right? So I have that confidence in myself to kind of say, I know I'm going to go against the grain, but that's me. But let's say I was only 2 years into this profession or only 1 year into this profession, right? And let's say what I write is going to make or break, because Carter Velide, whether movies a hit or not, it's a big ass movie. It's like a Mani Ratnam movie. For the English review reading public, that's a huge movie. Because if you review an Ajit or Vijay movie in English, it's not really a make or break kind of deal. But with Gautam, with Mani Ratnam, with Mishkin, with all these directors, with Vetrimaran, all these directors who make, to use a loose word, classy films. The English film reviews are really, really like scrutinized because these are the critics. That's the audience for these movies. So when you know that at that stage of your career, if you know that you're going to, you sense, I won't blame it if somebody kind of liked it but felt that they had to go with the public opinion because they wanted to make a meme or something like that. Because again, see, I really had it easy, man. When I was writing for the first, I think 10 years of my writing, 8, 9 years, 10 years, there was no social media. I would write, I would put it up on my blog. There would be blog comments. The blog is again a kind of an echo chamber in the way that even if people don't like my review, they're civilized people. They won't come and say, you MF kind of thing. They're like basically like will say, yeah, I'm not sure that that this movie has that much to rave about, something. So there'll be an actual discussion about it. Social media is a very different beast. It's like you will the worst language, the worst kind of trolling. There are people who can't take that. So so that again could affect how people form themselves. Which is why I think you find people aligning themselves in certain camps these days. When I mean camps, I mean there are all these reviewers today that write a certain kind of politically correct woke kind of review that if like a like if the heroine is not doing anything, they'll point out that, oh, you know what, it's so sad that even today a heroine is there and doesn't have much of a role or whatever that kind of because that stance has become important for people to slot you into one kind of viewer. And luckily my generation of viewers, we escaped this because I guess that scrutiny was not that much on us.
Related note, at least I sense that you have developed a bimodal distribution of expectations from Tamil movies, especially in these big budget commercial hero driven plots. You seem to have recalibrated your expectation to a lower level. For instance, the Viswasam being a prime example. By the way, I like the movie, I thought it was done. But the way that you expect from a Mishkin movie versus what you expect from, say, this Ajit and the Vijay movies, you seem to have toned down your expectations. Is that correct? And the follow-up question is that, I thought, the commercial Tamil cinema had its high when Rajni and Kamal were, going at it, right? When they were both, good actors and, as well as, good stars. It's kind of illogical to me. It's logical to expect Messi to score more goals, but we can't expect our best-selling heroes to provide the best movies. So what is your take on that?
Uh, See, uh, my basic way of reviewing a movie is still the same. It hasn't changed. But I that is when I look at it, right? Sometimes other people see you better than you see yourself. So I'm just trying to explain how I approach these films. When I go to a movie, I give it about 10-15 minutes for me to establish its world. Once that world is established, that's the world which that's all. So if Viswasam wants to be a nice update on a very generic kind of relationship movie, uh, then that's what it is. And for me, for that level, the fact that the heroine is treated well, really well, the fact that she's respected, the fact that hero becomes a kind of almost like a servant to her, even though he's a protector and all that. All these little touches, because the movie has basically told me that I exist at this level. Within the first 10 minutes of Psycho, if Viswasam is at this level, within the first minute of 10 minutes of Psycho, it has already established itself at this level. So then the movie is like its pressure is to keep at this level. For Viswasam, the pressure is it should not dip below this level because that's all I expect from it. Not simply because that's the movie it is. I can't suddenly expect a movie that has told me that this is going to be the story, or Urlo Raja Arna story, to suddenly become some complicated Kafkaesque, something like that. So I really firmly believe that you should give a film the chance to explain its boundaries to you, which usually happens in the first 10-15 minutes, and then use those boundaries as the parameters for your expectations. That's what happened for me. For me, Mersal didn't work. Bigil did. For a lot of people, Mersal seems to have worked, but they felt a little betrayed with Bigil. For me, Bigil was just, for me, one of the very, very, I mean, you must have, sorry, if you've seen my writing, you must have, I almost always talk a lot about the writing of the movie. This was a very clean bit of writing. You know, a father wants to do something, the son kind of, this has never been it, because Mersal was basically like, what is Vijay doing in Paris? What is, he's a doctor, I'm like, sorry, I'm so confused, what is happening here? There is no, it was just like one scene after illogical scene after illogical scene after illogical scene. That's not working for me. So I'm getting a high out of some scenes, but it's not strung together in a convincing manner. This is strung together in a relatively convincing manner. Now, if in this universe you come and ask me, she's been scarred all her life, this girl, you think one speech from Vijay can transform her? But that's this movie. At nowhere is it saying it's a realistic, soulful examination of how a trauma survivor overcomes a thing and all that. It's a hero movie. That's this movie. It's become clear in the first 10-15 minutes that is only the movie. This is not suddenly some women emancipation something. It's a hero emancipating this women movie. Once that's clear to me, that's how I look at it. So I really think that it's important to look at movies as to what they, which doesn't mean that I therefore accept everything that the movie gives. I'm just saying that becomes the the box within which I view the movie. So that's I haven't changed. But then again, art being so subjective, sometimes you just, let's say I have seen 10 weeks of really bad movies, right? The 11th week, if something comes up and if it's even okayish, maybe I'll give it a much better review than it I would have normally given, because I have been subjected to 10 weeks of non-stop bad movies. So those things you have to consider, and that's where the how do I put it? That's when this job description becomes, it's not, you're not a robot, you're a human being. So you it's impossible to be correct about this job, which is why I always feel, forget my wording, read my explanations. Whether I like the movie or not is really the secondary thing. How I'm talking about the movie, about the characters, about the writing, that usually will not change. Because that is the objective part of the review, where I'm saying this character in scene 1 she says this, in scene 5 she says this. It's really consistent development and all that. But if you see the movie one time or the 5th time or the 10th time, that's not going to change at all. That will always be there. That character will say that's the exact same thing in scene 1. He or she will say the exact same thing in scene 5. So that analysis won't change. But your inference of the movie based on that analysis might change depending on the kind of day you're having, so to speak.
So, on the commercial cinema subject, right? So, there was a nice passing of the baton from the MGR and Shivaji era to the giddy heights of Rajini and Kamal Hassan. And I'm sure, it was similar across, other South Indian movie industries. Do you think, we have fallen in, some sort of standard that we had, and then these heroes were, going at their strongest, to the commercial heroes, what they can pull off, at their peak right now?
See, I think the people have become victims of their own images and the budgets of films, because even at their highest of their high, the film industry had never had this kind of budget. Today, you're talking about Vijay taking an 80 or 100 crore salary for Master. I forget which it was. Now, I'm not getting it. I'm not saying whether he deserves this money or not. That's a different matter. That's not for me to comment on. But the minute this happens, the bigger the budget gets, the safer the movie has to be. That what I mean is, it cannot afford to take any kind of risk. The bigger it gets, the safer it has to go. So that is really played a huge part in how the movies have changed, because the budgets have made it impossible to experiment with a certain kind of thing. So I'm not saying that people cannot do it, but I just feel that people, if they want to keep their thing alive, they should do like this 100 crore movie, and then for the heck of it, do a 1 crore movie, and then do your 100 crore movie again, because your market is still intact. It's just that 1 crore movie may be seen only in cities or whatever it is, but you're not losing anything. But people don't do that. They kind of a thing. The other thing is, the formula thing has become much more entrenched today. It's like a wider range of people used to go and watch films before. So if you see a movie like NGR's Kudir and the Koil, even though it's a classic masala movie of good twin, bad twin and all that, there is a significant mother portion. There's a significant, there are other things happening around the hero. Here, or even if you watch Tunga De Tambi Tunga De, there is like, you have the twins swapping places, and the twin that has not seen the mother suddenly yearns to be with her and all that. Now those kind of side things are going away increasingly, because those side supporting characters, because the audience has become almost exclusively young male, like hardcore fans or whatever. So it becomes very difficult to make movies that satisfy them, because they expect constant stimulation. They're all ADD people. So like they expect constant stimulation. It's like 5 minutes, if somebody slows down to give an emotional beat, they'll be like, the film is lagging. So that has become a huge problem kind of a thing, because I always believe that the audience has to bear some of the blame, because for me, movies are like democracy. You vote with your ticket. If you buy tickets to Pariyar Perumal, they will make more Pariyar Perumal because they are not, for them, all that matters is I'm putting an X amount of money. If you give me much more than that, I will make more like this because I know you like it. But by seeing Pariyar Perumal in Amazon, I'm not I'm not letting the producer know that I'm endorsing this movie. Only Amazon knows that I like this movie because they know exactly how much time I've given to it or whatever it is, and they're not going to release those figures. So I always tell people that we get the movies we deserve simply because this is like voting, just like we get the governments we deserve. If you go, if you say it's Vijay film, I will go watch it in a theater. It's Sillu Karpati or whatever of these other smaller films, I'll wait for it to come to OTT. You're indirectly encouraging another movie like Sillu Karpati to not do well in the theatrical system. So how do we not take the blame, at least some of the blame for that, you know? Because theater going has become a bit of a priority for some people, as in like, if I go to the theater, I want to make sure it's worth a theater experience, which means I like either it should be a spectacle, some 3D, avatar, something. There should be some James Bond, Fast and Furious, something that makes me, or a horror movie where the sound is important, something that says I should watch this movie in a theater. But supposing we say that all movies are worth watching in a theater, and then that won't be a problem. But the point is, even a flop movie of a big star will make 100 times more money than a hit movie of a smaller cast and crew. What does that tell you? It just means that the numbers of tickets being bought for that are much more, even though they know the film is bad, right?
Yeah.
Another thing is, a producer once told me that when you go to the real hardcore areas, that is away from the cities, as you go into the real places, people don't know Michigan, they don't know Maniratnam, they don't know, all they know is the face on the poster. If the hero's there, they'll go. If the hero's not there, they won't go. So that culture becomes a very self-propagating one. So I think that's what it is in a lot of ways.
Okay.
So, BR, how do you think the South Indian movie industry in general is placed in comparison to each other and also with respect to Bollywood? And do you still see that South Indian cinema as a center of innovation in terms of screenplay and story writing?
I think really that the Malayalam film industry is the best mainstream industry in India today, because they have really demarcated the roles of director and story screenwriter. And I think the heroes are also not afraid of experimenting with different kinds of roles. So I think that's really what it is. With regard to Tamil and Telugu, I think maybe we get the odd good movie, but Malayalam is really where it's at, because there's almost every, in Tamil and Telugu, you're lucky if you get one good movie a month. There, you get like almost like a good movie a week, which is ridiculously good. It's like, when I say good, I don't mean necessarily great, but something that's worth watching, something that's interesting, that kind of stuff.
So following up to Pallavi's question, do you think Tamil cinema specifically has lagged well where it should have progressed? Because back in the day, you used to have Bollywood looking to Tamil cinema for, especially if you see the amount of remakes that would go there, right? And it's not there now. So do you think it has lagged?
I don't know if it's lagged. I mean, it's as an industry, it seems to be doing well. But I really think,
In terms of storytelling.
yeah, I think there are years that are good and years that are bad. Like one year we had an exceptional series of newcomer directors coming and doing really great films. It
Yeah.
just went on, and it looked like a new movement. It started with Durangal Padinaru, then Managaram happened, and just went on, and you just, like, a whole bunch of new directors came and did lots of fantastic films. I really thought that was like a movement, but then it turned out it was not a movement at all. So it was just like some freakish coincidence. So I think the system here needs to be changed a bit, because I think it's too expensive to mount a movie and release it, and I think that's what's really choking producers down the line. So I think it's both an economic thing, and I think now with the pandemic, I think we also need to figure out how people's attitudes are going to change, because see, we all might see ultimately, even though I just said this, that we should go and try voting is like, it's like voting with a ticket. We know for a fact that people have gotten used to OTT, and they're going to really be careful about the kind of movies they're going to go watch in the theaters, and the kind of movies they're going to say, I really want to watch this movie. I hope it comes soon on OTT. That's what's going to happen. So yeah, I don't know how things will happen, but I think Tamil cinema still has about, I think any industry that produces a super deluxe, kind of has you may like the movie, you may not like the movie. That's a different thing, but it's a very ballsy film. That's what I'm trying to say. That quality, I think, is still there in Tamil cinema in a few directors. Yeah.
Okay. So, quick this thing. So, Hari has come up with a rapid fire options for you. I just have 5 quick questions. First one is Mishkin or Vetrimaran?
Wow. Mishkin. Mishkin is such an odd kind of person that you don't know what he's going to do next. With Vetri, I'm always assured of a certain, thing. But with Mishkin, you never know what direction. Like a blind man driving a car. Where would I get that except in a Mishkin movie? Just kind of, wow, what just happened there? So.
Yeah. The next one is Ajit or Vijay?
It's very movie dependent, because I'm really a fan of neither in that. Like, when I was younger, yes, I would have said Kamal versus Rajni, means I would have said Kamal. When I came to the Ajit Vijay phase, I was really not I'm really not, but I guess maybe Vijay.
Okay. Yeah, I like that answer. Next one is from Pallavi, Karan Johar or Sanjay Leela Bansali? Okay. Hari again asks R.D. Burman or Ilayaraja?
I don't want to answer this question. They're both very close to me, but it's really it's so difficult, especially in music, to kind of choose. They are both such a huge part of my childhood and growing up years. I don't want to choose. Please don't make me choose this.
Okay, the last one, Malayalam cinema or Marathi cinema?
Malayalam, simply because I haven't seen too much of Marathi cinema. What really is, which I hope the gap that the OTTs will do is basically, earlier when I used to go and watch, to the Goa Film Festival, right? I would watch all these fantastic Kannada films, Marathi films, Gujarati films, Rajasthani some Assamese. They would all show at the panorama section and vanish into a black hole. Like nobody would know like everybody would write about them from the movies, and you'd like make a list of, I want to look out for this film, but nobody knows where those movies go. I hope at least now OTT picks up some of those movies and makes it available for watching, because we really need a system that, like earlier when the NFTC was producing films, or the Film Federation of India was producing films, Doordarshan used to be a standard place where you see them. So it's like we need that kind of a space where we can see the new Girish Kasaravalli movie if I want to. Right now there is no space for me to see it unless some kind soul brings a copy to Chennai and arranges a private screening or something like that. You have no way of watching it. So I hope OTTs bridge the gap, so that the next time you ask me this rapid fire, I'll actually have a tough time choosing, because I would have seen as many Marathi films as Malayalam films. So I really hope that's something that the OTTs do. So was I suitably diplomatic in that OTT, or did I kind of actually no? In that R.D. Burman Ilayaraja, I'll choose Ilayaraja. It's like It's a thing. It's just that, I don't like choosing between music directors. Like, if somebody asked me MSV or Ilayaraja, I would really have a hard time choosing, because it's like they're different things, they represent different things, different styles. Things like, did Ilayaraja do many more movies? Yes. But if you ask me who's better, supposing I take a song, I'm not a big fan of choosing when it comes to that kind of stuff. So, thanks, guys. It was fun doing this.
It was awesome. We are very
your
privileged to talk to you. Yeah.
No, it was a privilege to be with you guys, because you guys seem to really followed me for a while now. So you seem to know quite a bit of, it was kind of fun talking about all this stuff. So thank you so much, everyone. And all the best for your channel, the YouTube channel.
Hi, hope you all enjoyed our interaction with Mr. Baradwaj Rangan. Please do check out the South Talkies podcast link. The link is provided below in this video, where we have a lot more interesting content ranging from interviews and conversations with some of your favorite celebrities, including our own Kannada superstar Mr. Rakshit Shetty, as well as detailed discussions on a lot of your favorite movies in the 4 South Indian languages. Until we see you next time, thank you and take care.